Hello and welcome to a brand new series of Film Focus, the show where we look at different film themes and bring you the latest industry hot topics. Today's show is all about Sherlock Holmes, from the big screen, the small screen and the man himself. Regular contributor Josh Wright will also be back with his top 5 selection. Luke Stevenson's our very own in-house review wizard. And newcomer James Murphy will be telling us what he really thinks. That's all to look forward to for the rest of the series and on today's show. But first, we've got Tom Peratt and the 60-second news.
Hello, and here is this week's 60-second news. We start with a big casting buzz as Marvel's Fantastic Four reboot has found its cast. Sources tell The Hollywood Reporter that the studio is making deals with Miles Teller, Kate Mara, Michael B. Jordan and Jamie Bell to star in a project that reboots the Marvel superheroes. Josh Trank of Chronicle fame is directing the film, which is slated for a 2015 release. For all you Ron Burgundy fans out there, you may be happy to hear that Anchorman 2 has secured a longer cut release. Featuring 763 new jokes, Ron, Brick, Dobie and co will be strutting their stuff for 1 week only from February 28th in both the UK and the US. And it's had a long journey to the screen, losing Steven Soderbergh and George Clooney along the way, but the much-developed man from UNCL is now finally within sight. Guy Ritchie is directing, with Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer playing the leads, but today's news is that the film has a release date of January the 16th, 2015. Hope you've enjoyed the news. That's all from me till next week. All the best. Goodbye.
It's time for James in front of a fireplace.
Good evening. By now you're probably wondering why we haven't mentioned Elementary yet, a very original show which places the characters of Conan Doyle in the modern day for the first time in a one-of-a-kind TV. Well, what was the BBC one about, is that? Okay, there's also Sherlock, which aired 2 years earlier, which stars Eggs Benedict Cucumber Patch, whose every line gets uploaded to Tumblr in about 0.38 seconds, accompanied by a picture of a kitten or the boy child from Merlin. Either way, there's also Martin Freeman, who plays a bunged up and cuddly John Watson, and business school graduate lookalike Andrew Scott playing Moriarty. Did you miss me? Spoiler alert, he's alive. If Sherlock is a private school boy who is happy to take up an hour and a half of your evening, Elementary is a chubby little American child putting up its hand, telling you how diverse it is. John Watson being changed to Joan Watson, so it can be played by Lucy Liu, and a female Moriarty, played by Natalie Dormer, known mainly for getting her breasts out in The Tudors and Game of Thrones. But who hasn't got their breasts out in Game of Thrones? A titty woman and an Asian woman in the Sherlock world. That's America for you. Still, no one's been diverse enough to replace the entire cast with cartoon dogs, have they? Have they?
Sherlock Holmes, a detective so supreme. Sherlock Holmes, you're the only one for me.
Back to Elementary, and thank Hudson, Sherlock is at least played by nice white man Johnny Lee Miller, known for having 3 names and being English. And how do we know he's English?
What is that? I asked for coffee.
Oh, you asked for coffee, but you got tea.
No, I'm British. This is not tea.
Because we all love tea, don't we? We're all English, constantly drinking tea, having a cuppa, practically coming out of our pipes, isn't it? Actually, I do quite like a chamomile at night. Anyway, the pilot is like any TV show, but worse. With more flashbacks than an old man trying to relive his past. Angry to even watch that scene.
I thought that was by choice. Then I remembered the overturned washing machine.
I even had to have a drink after I watched it. Anyway, if the flashbacks are still too complex for you, the pilot ends with the song Watching the Detectives by Elvis Costello, an English song with the word detective in it. I don't know about you, but I like to be a little more subtle with my music choices.
You've been watching James
in front of a fireplace.
So a big thank you to Tom with the news then, James with his views on Sherlock and Elementary. But we come to our guests now. So obviously James was there talking about Elementary quite a lot. And so first of all, what's our thoughts on Elementary?
After you. Okay, well I'm of the highly controversial view that Elementary is a better television show a better television drama than Sherlock at this present moment in time. Personally, I think that that's not actually a problem because of the creators of the show or the writers of the show. I think that's to do with the scheduling execs who have given Elementary a 1 hour slot every week, which has given the characters more time to develop. I feel like when I'm watching Elementary, I'm watching Sherlock with characters rather than caricatures. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that Sherlock is the better visual and viewing experience, but to me, Elementary just works better as a television drama, and at its core, both of them are television dramas. Right. I think that Johnny Lee Miller absolutely carries Sherlock brilliantly. And of course, before Elementary came out, we had Benedict Cumberbatch in Sherlock, and everyone loves him. He's obviously blown up hugely since then. But Johnny Lee Miller does an absolutely excellent job and carries the character in a completely different way. And I certainly think it's worth giving a go for anyone who is kind of sceptical about it.
Right, and Luke, obviously, I think you're more on the side of Sherlock, aren't you?
I do agree with what you said about the I don't feel like Sherlock, the British TV series, has enough in its runtime to really actually develop the characters at all. I think the first time we ever saw that was in the most recent series. When you're 7 episodes into a TV show, that's not the first time you want to go, well, these characters actually like each other. It's more, I think they've done very well to avoid comparisons with the movies that came out before, where I think the characters are actually very, very similar with the movie characters. I don't think Benedict Cumberbatch is really as great as everyone says he is. He does a very good Sherlock Holmes, but he isn't taking it any places that I haven't seen before.
Right, and just briefly, do you think we've lost the magic of Conan Doyle's writing in these modern adaptations? Just very briefly.
Well, I think that comes with when you try to reboot a franchise 3 times within like 5 years of each other. Like the first Robert Downey Jr. film came out in about 2009. And since then we've had 2 TV shows, different versions, everyone arguing over it. And it kind of just dilutes the product, really. So no one's really that excited about Sherlock anymore. It's kind of like, oh, here's another one for us.
I know that Elementary's massively on growth at the moment.
Sorry, I think we're just going to have to stop there. I think we're going to another VT.
So, before Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman popularised quirky comedy, visibly stimulating detective work and homoerotic subtext, there was Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes films. The latter effort of these 2 movies was A Game of Shadows. This told the story of Holmes trying to prevent devilishly British mastermind Moriarty, played by Jared Harris, from orchestrating the industrialisation of European armies and profiteering from a world war in 1891. A slight snag with this plot is that, well, Holmes achieves absolutely nothing. Whilst he wins the plot of the movie and a game of chess at some point, he instead gives Western Europe time to get more industrialised, more guns, and more ability to kill each other in time for World War I. To put it in shooting terms, Holmes is essentially the guy who, when you want to throw up after 5 drinks, stops you and asks you to throw up after 15. He feels good about himself, but all he's done is given someone else a lot of mess to clean up. There is plenty of Holmes and Watson banter, riffing off the exceptional chemistry between Jude Law and Robert Downey Jr., who continues to make genius heroes parodies themselves with exceptional ease. There's also a charming supporting role from a naked Stephen Fry. Jared Harris excels as a drawling Moriarty, and the final sequence at the Reichenbach Falls is a refreshing approach to a conflict by putting the character's wits to the test rather than brawn. This is a welcome relief from the rest of the movie, which seems to enjoy blowing up trees in slow motion, because the producers appear to realise a little bit too late that the plot was as thin as the cast of America's Next Top Model, and decided to stretch the plot with copious amounts of slow-moving bits of bark floating past Noomi Rapace's face. Yes, Noomi Rapace, she was also there, apparently.
So a big thank you to Luke with his review there, but I think we're now going to go for Josh Wright's top 5 selection.
Benedict Cumberbatch playing Sherlock and Martin Freeman playing Watson. That was a f***ing surprise, wasn't it? Sherlock, holy crap, that is a good show. Finally, something to blur the mess of Towie and Made in Chelsea that's suddenly come onto my screen. A show that ends with its audience having an intelligent discussion or argument about characters' plot lines, compared to what most shows end with, I can't believe Stacey shat herself. I just can't believe it. Sherlock is television gold, something that should be universally adored and watched. However, this is top 5, so here's my top 5 things that piss me off in Sherlock. Number 5, episode 2 sucks. Now, before you rip me to shreds, the most recent episode 2, with the wedding, was very good. I like to see the human side of Sherlock. That was very nice. However, this and this
That's supposed to convince me.
Is a little bit of a disappointment. Number 4, Sherlock started in 2010. 2010. That's 4 years. 4 years until we finally see the 2 of them get drunk together. I like that bit. But 4 years, come on. I'm not asking you to pump it out every week like a Doctor Who episode, but just squeeze it up a little bit. Put the smaller projects to the side. Get your together, less is not more. Size matters here, Mofat. Number 3, Charles Augustus Magnuson. Now at first, I was a bit when the character was first put into the show, but as they developed him a bit more, I thought, that guy's really creepy. I love it. They built up such a strong character, such an awesome villain to go against Sherlock, well, apart from...
Then you could cherish the look of surprise on my face.
The famous Sherlock has been outdone by Charles. And what does Sherlock do in this terrible time?
I'm a high-functioning sociopath. Merry Christmas!
Boom! Mystery solved, motherfuckers! Number 2. One thing that's annoyed me in Sherlock is mind palaces. Okay, it's a stretch, but it's somewhat believable they exist. And it's a stretch and somewhat believable that they're databases, either a computer or some sort of library. But they're stupid. I mean, take away all the special effects, and you pretty much just get this. Imagine what Watson would think. You look like such an idiot. And at number 1, Sherlock's death. Okay, you're not going to show us how he did it. That's a bit of a disappointment, but I'll take it. And you start the first episode with showing us how we think it was done, with Derren Brown and all that stuff, which is odd, but then it turns out to be someone else's idea, which is quite clever actually. But if you keep on giving me different ways how it could be done, that's a bit too much, I feel. Stop milking me like I'm some sort of attention-seeking cow. Stop it, please. Just tell me or don't tell me. Don't tease me. Stop it. Stop it. That was my top 5. Back to you in the studio.
So obviously we were talking about Elementary earlier, but coming back straight in, we've got the films as well, the Sherlock films. What do we think of those? Obviously you did review the second one there, didn't you?
I think the second one was a very poor comparison to the first one. The first one was very good. It definitely reinvented Sherlock, so much so that Elementary and the BBC TV series decided to copy it. So, but the second one was a bit of a disappointment. I think that's probably informed the fact that there hasn't been a third one yet. You know, Hollywood loves to roll out trilogies, but they haven't done it yet. And I think that's a mark on how poor the second one was in comparison to the first one.
Well, that's a fair point. And also moving on to sort of Sherlock Holmes and Watson, their bromance. There's been a lot of talk about that recently with Sherlock. I mean, has that changed over the sort of the adaptations that we've seen?
I think certainly as like the idea of a bromance and homosexual connotations become far more acceptable to the modern audience, then it can make a more, it can make a bigger showing in the modern adaptations. I think it's very important that in Elementary they haven't cashed in on what would be a bromance between Holmes and Watson, but would be just a normal romance, because they've made it, they've strayed far away from that, which is really kind of given some extra depth to the characters, because they've had to focus on how they react to other people.
Yeah, I feel like that would enhance it as well, because like in the third series of Sherlock, a lot of the relationship between Holmes and Watson felt a lot like fan service, because everyone expected this bromance and they gave it to them.
Well, thank you very much, guys, there. I think we've answered the questions there and solved the mysteries, but I'm still clueless about which Sherlock's better. So let us know your views via our Facebook and Twitter pages. But that's all we have time for on today's show. So a big thank you to my guests and contributors. We'll be back next week with Edgar Wright and the Cornetto trilogy. So